Let's be brutally honest. You're playing a game. Every day, every interaction, every choice you make happens on an invisible chessboard designed by forces you never consciously acknowledged. The most disturbing part? You didn't sign up for this. You were placed on the board before you could comprehend what was happening, handed a rulebook written in invisible ink and told to play well or else. Society isn't just a collection of norms and expectations. It's a sophisticated system of control masked as freedom, a game where most participants don't realize they're playing. Think about it. How many of your desires are truly yours? How many of your fears were programmed? How many of your ambitions were quietly inserted into your mind while you were busy being entertained? As Aldous Huxley predicted nearly a century ago, the most effective form of control isn't oppression, it's pleasure. We haven't been conquered by force. We've been seduced by convenience. We haven't been silenced by censorship. We've been drowned out by noise. We haven't been imprisoned in cells. We've been locked in digital cages with doors we ourselves refuse to open. The game's architecture. The architecture of this game is ingenious. Unlike chess, where the rules are transparent and the objective clear, this game obscures both. You're meant to chase success without questioning what success means. You're pushed to accumulate without reflecting on why. You're encouraged to connect digitally while your capacity for genuine human connection atrophies. The game operates on multiple levels, each designed to keep you engaged but never fulfilled. Level 1, the pleasure trap. Every time you pick up your phone and scroll without thinking, every time you open another tab to see something that deep down doesn't even interest you, every time you eat without hunger, laugh without joy, consume without need, who is enjoying? You or the system that conditioned you? The modern world has weaponized pleasure. It's not just available, it's unavoidable. Your brain, evolved to appreciate rarity, now drowns in abundance. Food isn't just sustenance, it's engineered dopamine delivery. Entertainment isn't relaxation, it's precisely calibrated addiction. Social media isn't connection, it's validation on demand. This level of the game ensures you remain distracted. While you chase the next dopamine hit, the next episode, the next notification, you're not questioning the larger structures shaping your existence. Your attention, perhaps your most valuable resource, is fragmented into worthless shards, each reflecting a different distraction but none capable of focusing long enough to see the complete picture. Level 2, the validation economy. Beyond pleasure lies the more sophisticated mechanism of social validation. You've been conditioned to measure your worth through others' reactions. Every like, every comment, every bit of attention becomes currency in an economy designed to bankrupt your self-worth. The world doesn't reward the good. It rewards those who know how to play their cards well. This level teaches you that image matters more than substance, that perception outweighs reality. You learn to curate yourself, to perform rather than to be. Your authentic self becomes negotiable, a liability to be managed rather than a foundation to build upon. The validation economy ensures you remain dependent on external metrics for internal worth, a game that can never be won because the standards constantly shift and the judges are equally insecure players. Level 3, the fear factory. Undergirding everything is fear, not the acute fear of danger, but the chronic anxiety of inadequacy. Fear of missing out, fear of falling behind, fear of being alone, fear of being judged. These fears aren't accidents. They're fuel for the game's engine. Respect is not asked for. It is imposed, and it is imposed in silence. The game teaches you that security comes from conformity, that safety lies in numbers. It whispers that deviation equals rejection, that authenticity is a luxury you cannot afford. This level ensures you remain compliant not through external force but through internalized insecurity. You become your own prison guard, policing your thoughts and behaviors to avoid the pain of exclusion. The rules you never consented to. What makes this game particularly insidious is that its rules were never presented for your approval. From birth, you've been absorbing implicit contracts. Success means accumulation. More money, more recognition, more possessions, more experiences, all carefully documented to prove they happened. Time is meant to be productive. Every moment should generate output, build toward goals, or at minimum, be entertaining. Silence and emptiness are treated as waste. Relationships are transactional. Their value measured by what they provide: status, support, validation, or advancement. Appearances determine reality. How something seems matters more than what it is. Discomfort should be avoided. Physical pain, emotional distress, social awkwardness, intellectual challenge, all signals to retreat. Attention belongs to the loudest. Value goes to those who capture eyes and ears, not necessarily those with substance. Your worth must be continuously proven. Yesterday's achievements expire, requiring constant renewal of your social license. You didn't agree to these rules, yet breaking them triggers real consequences. The game punishes nonconformity not through formal sanctions, but through the subtle violence of exclusion, irrelevance, and judgment. Why most never realize they're playing. The problem is that most people have limits as blurry as their identity. They contradict themselves, they justify themselves, they bend, and then they cry because no one takes them seriously. The genius of this system is that it presents itself as the natural order. Fish don't conceptualize water. Humans don't question cultural assumptions. Most people never realize they're playing a game for several reasons. The illusion of choice. The game offers enough superficial options to maintain the feeling of autonomy. You can choose between thousands of products, hundreds of careers, dozens of lifestyles, but the fundamental expectation that you will consume, produce, and conform remains unchallenged. You might decide which streaming service to subscribe to, but questioning whether endless entertainment serves your deeper interests is discouraged. The normalization of absurdity. When everyone around you plays by the same rules, those rules seem inevitable rather than arbitrary. The person spending hours each day managing an online persona doesn't question whether this is a reasonable use of human life. The worker sacrificing health and relationships for career advancement doesn't wonder if this exchange makes sense. Collective participation normalizes even the most absurd aspects of the game. The conflation of discomfort with dysfunction. The game teaches you that negative emotions signal something wrong rather than something important. Boredom isn't seen as an opportunity for reflection but as a problem to solve with stimulation. Loneliness isn't recognized as a natural human experience but as a failure to be sufficiently social. Anxiety isn't understood as a response to legitimate threats, including threats to authentic selfhood, but as a malfunction to be medicated away. This reframing ensures that the natural discomforts that might lead to questioning the game are instead interpreted as personal failures within the game. The price of playing by default. If you are not respected, it's not the world's fault. It's yours because you taught them how to treat you. You were flexible when you had to be firm. You stayed silent when you had to speak. You forgave when you had to close the door. And now you live with the consequences. Playing the default game comes with costs far higher than most realize. The atrophy of attention. Your ability to focus deeply, perhaps your most uniquely human capacity, deteriorates through disuse. As your attention fragments, so does your ability to find meaning, to solve complex problems, to appreciate nuance, and to create rather than consume. The outsourcing of validation. When your sense of worth depends on external validation, you surrender your psychological sovereignty. Your emotional state becomes hostage to forces beyond your control, the algorithms that determine visibility, the passing judgments of strangers, the fickle standards of mass approval. The erosion of authenticity. Each time you modify your true inclinations to fit expectations, you chip away at your authentic self. Over time, the gap between who you are and who you present becomes so vast that you lose track of your genuine preferences, values, and desires. You become a collection of adaptations rather than a coherent individual. the numbing of genuine pleasure. Paradoxically, constant access to engineered pleasure diminishes your capacity to experience genuine satisfaction. The brain, overwhelmed by stimulation, adapts by dulling its response. Real accomplishment, deep connection, natural beauty. The experiences that once would have inspired profound joy now barely register against the artificially heightened baseline. The substitution of meaning with metrics. The game encourages you to translate qualitative experiences into quantitative measurements. Friendship becomes a friend count, influence becomes a follower number, experiences become photo opportunities. This reduction strips life of its inherent meaning, replacing depth with superficial accounting. Breaking the rules. How to play your own game. The world doesn't follow the nicest. It follows the most coherent. The one who never doubts even when everyone else does. The one who punishes justly, rewards logically, and doesn't stray for cheap emotions. To reclaim your life from the default game, you must become aware of its mechanisms and consciously establish alternative rules. Here's how to start playing your own game. Reclaim your attention. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. It determines what thoughts you think, what connections you make, what actions you take. Begin by noticing how much of your attention is captured without your conscious consent. Practice attention training. Start with just 5 minutes of focusing on a single task or object without allowing your mind to wander. When distraction arises, as it inevitably will, gently return to your focus point. Gradually extend this practice until sustained attention feels natural rather than strained. Create environmental defenses. Remove notification triggers from your devices. Establish physical spaces free from digital intrusion. Schedule specific times for reactive activities like email and social media, rather than allowing them to interrupt your day at random. The ability to direct your attention rather than surrendering it is the foundation of playing your own game. Develop strategic distance. The world doesn't reward the good or the just. It rewards those who know how to sell their version of the story. Recognize that your presence, your energy, your time, and your words all carry value, but only if they're not given indiscriminately. Practice strategic distance from both people and platforms that extract more value than they provide. This doesn't mean becoming cold or unavailable to those who matter. Rather, it means being intentional about where you invest yourself. The paradox is that becoming less available often increases both your impact and the respect you receive when you do engage. Master emotional sovereignty. The one who controls your emotion controls your actions. Most people live at the mercy of emotional reactivity, responding to triggers with predictable patterns that make them easily manipulated. Breaking free requires developing emotional awareness without emotional bondage. Practice observing your emotions without immediately acting on them. Notice the physical sensations, the thought patterns, the action impulses, but maintain the space between observation and response. This gap is where your freedom lives. Understand that emotions are information, not commands. Anger signals a boundary violation. Fear indicates a perceived threat. Sadness recognizes a loss. Acknowledge the information without becoming a prisoner to the feeling. Embrace strategic discomfort. What brings the most pleasure in life is what costs the most. The default game teaches you to avoid discomfort at all costs. Your game requires recognizing that growth, meaning, and accomplishment all require moving toward discomfort rather than away from it. Begin intentionally practicing discomfort in small, strategic ways. Cold showers that wake your system, difficult conversations you've been avoiding, creative projects where failure is likely, physical challenges that push your limits. As you build this capacity, you develop immunity to one of the default game's most powerful control mechanisms. Establish uncompromising standards. Respect is not declared. It's built with actions that leave no room for doubt. In a world of endless compromise, maintaining clear standards becomes revolutionary. Decide what you will and won't accept from others, from situations, and from yourself, and hold these boundaries with absolute consistency. This isn't about rigid perfectionism, but about conscious choice. When you decide to make an exception, do so deliberately, not because you're afraid of conflict or desperate for approval. Remember that your standards communicate your value more clearly than your words ever could. People will test your limits to determine if they're real, and their respect will be proportional to the firmness of your response. Cultivate strategic silence. The one who speaks the least, the one who explains the least, is the one who commands the most respect. In an age of oversharing, silence becomes a source of power. Practice speaking only when you have something valuable to contribute. Resist the urge to fill conversational gaps, to offer unsolicited explanations, or to thinking aloud about matters best kept private. Strategic silence creates mystery, communicates self-assurance, and forces others to assign positive attributes to you rather than confirming negative assumptions. It also preserves your energy for what truly matters rather than dispersing it through meaningless chatter. Build deeper, fewer connections. Respect is not about having many, but about having the right ones. The default game encourages broad, shallow connections, hundreds of friends you barely know, professional networks valued for their size rather than their depth, romantic relationships maintained until something better comes along. Your alternative: invest deeply in a carefully selected few. Develop relationships characterized by mutual growth, unwavering loyalty, and genuine understanding. These connections provide a stable foundation that makes you less vulnerable to the approval mechanisms of the larger game. The ultimate victory. If you are not willing to lose whatever is necessary to become someone impossible to ignore, you are not ready for real respect. The ultimate victory isn't outplaying the system through cleverness or manipulation. It's transcending the game entirely by becoming someone so internally coherent, so clear in purpose, so firm in principle that external validation becomes irrelevant. This transformation doesn't happen through dramatic gestures, but through consistent daily choices. Choosing silence over empty words, depth over distraction, authenticity over approval, meaningful discomfort over meaningless pleasure. The world may never stop playing its game. The notifications will still ping, the social pressures will still exist, the implicit rules will still be enforced. But when you establish your own internal compass, when you play by standards you consciously choose rather than unconsciously absorb, you achieve something rare and precious. You become the author of your own life rather than a character in someone else's design. And that not money, not fame, not influence, not even the respect of others, is the true meaning of victory.